Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, hello to you. So, I've been watching some stuff. I got a subscription to Julian Dory the other day. First month's free. I got it because I wanted to check out. As soon as I start recording. There's never a shortage of people that make their entire identity about what type of vehicle they drive or whatever. When you have a transsexual as a dad, you're not going to be afraid of much. It's just the way that it is, because you're going to grow up fighting. And when you fight drug cartels, you're not going to fear death all that much, because that might actually become a welcome relief, which is something you play across in your head a lot, dude. Being tortured wouldn't be cool, but they're only going to be able to do that for so long. Them getting your family wouldn't be cool, but ultimately you're all going to be reunited with your God in heaven. You learn to think about things in this type of way. Vince is up here. The cartel's worst nightmare reveals all. Special Operations Border Patrol. I'm a big fan of Vincent Vargas, believe it or not. I'm not a fan of Katarina Schultz so much, and I'm not throwing any mud in their drink. Or rain in their drink. It's just I know that they work together. Vince is up here talking about working with Hollywood.
Writing was more what I dreamed of doing, and it's really hard to get into Hollywood as a writer just out of nowhere, but I knew I could probably get in as an actor. And
maybe doing a video on Benavides, excuse me. I'm going to pull up on my phone right now, because a lot of this stuff, Roy P. Benavides, right there. Hey Vince, I'm a huge fan of yours, man. Even though I want to do Rubber Bullet CQB with you and Sean, my wife gets out. She's sitting over there, rolling her eyes. I've got my own sense of humor, man, and me and you are both from the Valley, Vince, and so I would friggin' love for all of us to get together and do Rubber Bullet CQB. But, like tonight, I wanted coffee, and I didn't get it. I got mineral water instead. So as is life, a lot of times you don't get what you want. Vince is sitting here talking about social media being like a huge thing and influencers. I'm not an influencer, or maybe I'm just some dude that got dropped into this earth, didn't get a name for a couple years, had a transsexual as a dad. My transsexual dad was busy being a tunnel rat in Vietnam at the time. Probably wanted to knock off a piece of tail before he was being sent to his death. And to be honest, I don't fucking blame him, man. I don't like cussing, but I mean, believe me, and my wife is sitting 4 feet from me, if I was being sent to war, my wife calls me her little putito. You do, don't you?
Yes.
And I'm grateful that my wife accepts me for all of my imperfections. I don't lie to my wife about stuff, man. If I was being sent off to war 100%, I'm going to go out and have a rumble in the hay, so to speak, before I'm going to be unalived, and that's it. So I'm not mad at my dad about that. But listening to Vince wanting to get into Hollywood, being an actor, my main problem with Ironclad and stuff like that, and I'm not scripting this video. I've scripted the last two videos I've done on purpose, because I want to change the way that I come across. And at the same time, I realize that my channel keeps growing in spite of other people not wanting it to grow that much, because I'm kind of a realist. You know what? Tourists don't have any place reporting on cartel stuff, and I'm referring to tourists, people that get the bulk of their cartel content off through OSINT, open source intelligence. networking, Twitter, scrubbing the internet, stuff that they hear. This morning I was listening to Sargento 43.
Un grupo que una vez sembró el terror en todo el noreste de México, los Zetas.
Y escuchen este corrido que alegre vengo a cantar. Qué bonito es Chihuahua.
And he was basically reading an account of a Zeta operative of whom I myself have fought.
Brava como un león herido, dulce como esta canción. Qué bonito es Chihuahua.
Zeta cartel members, but in real life, not an email, substantiated, documented, evidenced, not Hollywood writing, real stuff, you know. And people either like me or they don't. That's fine. You can take your pick. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm not asking you for your money. I'm not asking you for anything. You like my video, drop on in. Feel free. I would broil you or grill you a steak right now, regardless of who you are. I like that Vincent wants to tell American stories like Roy Benavides. Being a native Angelino, which Vince and I both are, we love Hispanic shit, man. I'm a native Angelino. Vince is too. Growing up in Los Angeles, you learn to love Hispanic stuff because it is everywhere. And I love the idea of Vincent Vargas telling Roy Benavides' story. I think that that's amazing. I think he should do it. Big fan. Am I a fan of having grifters or whatever, and I do call them grifters, show up after the fact in some place where myself and my brothers go and sometimes meet our gruesome ends? No, definitely just so they can sell some YouTube videos? Definitely not. You know, I do take issue with that, and I'm going to continue taking issue with that, as would any other community of any other type of service or military or whatever, to where you are shot and killed, sometimes alone, in the middle of the night, no one else is there except for you and your brothers, just to have some bird come along looking for worms after the rain, after everything's already happened. You know, and that's kind of the way that I view that. And even more so, like I said, I started doing these videos because of Ed Calderon speaking to Representative Dan Crenshaw. I didn't dig on that, especially without his background being substantiated. Then I looked at stuff like Katerina Schultz and other people, and I didn't like people. And I hate to name names, but at the same time, I've given all these people the opportunity to email me and talk to me behind closed doors. So at this point, I kind of feel like everyone's had an opportunity to converse with me and has opted not to, so I'll say what I want, respectfully. That people that profit off of the suffering of other people, or people that provoke policies that are detrimental to the well-being of children and other people, is something I'm going to openly and actively combat. I was watching Sean Strickland with Sean Ryan the other day talk about Muslims.
Muslim to me was like the fucking boogie. The Muslim is bad. Israel deprogrammed me. Israel deprogrammed me. Because I'm watching what you guys did to Gaza, and we're not seeing, like, I don't see, when I see a dead body, I don't see a jihadist with an AK. I'm seeing a little girl being pulled out of a fucking building. I see map images of this, like, piece of land that, like, is now a demolition site. Like, you are committing on a very small scale a genocide. When they lost me, there was, like, one of our Zionist leaders. I think maybe it was like Tucker or something, or like he's in an interview. And he said, well, what would you do if, what did we do to Hitler? Like, what would we do to the Nazis? Referring to, like, we're having a proportional response to what they're doing. I'm like, well, what you wouldn't do, you wouldn't go over there and fucking murder kids.
You know, I've read the Quran twice. I've mentioned that before. And I don't like the idea that they think in their scripture they have the right to cut off my head and my hand or my feet from opposing sides of the body. And at the same time, being a libertarian that leans heavily conservative, I've lost a lot of my friends over not supporting I'm not even going to call it the war in Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, and everything that Sean said about that. I'm not a fan of having Islam take over Dearborn, Michigan, or New York, or any of that other stuff. Definitely not. That being said, Muslims are people that I have found to be generally pious people, which is to say spiritual, and not in a hypocritical sense like a Jack Mormon would be in terms of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or anything like that. Genuinely followers of their beliefs, not all of them out trying to date boys or any of the other stuff that gets talked about. And when I opposed the Gazan war, I had to question my own Christian beliefs and question the veracity of the Bible, how it was put together, to either come away with a freedom not being chained to something that wasn't true, or having tested my foundation, standing on a firmer foundation because I found that my beliefs are true. Killing children is never going to be something that squares with me, to the point that I would betray my own God if he told me to do it openly. So I like not scripting these videos. Not going to make this a long drawn out video. Anthony Fauci pleading the Fifth Amendment in front of Congress over something that affected the entire country. Vince in this video talks about being patriotic and being an American. I am a patriotic American. However, I don't want a Gestapo running through the street. However, I don't think that it's okay to tell another human they can't eat while you sit on your pedestal in your $90,000 vehicle and tell somebody else they can't even work for a living to support their family as they their health dwindles day by day because they don't have anything to eat. I mean, this earth is inhabited by humans, and don't get me wrong, I don't want migrants coming here taking advantage of the welfare system, but that's not even on them anyways. That's on American politicians. Why the hell did they make such a huge welfare system to be taken advantage of to begin with, if not to get people to depend on them to cement their own power? Stuff like that. There's so many things that we could talk about. Vince, I hope you do a video or a movie on Roy Benavides. I think that stories like that are important to tell. Like you, I am a patriotic American. I was born here. I view myself as a patriotic Californian. Native son of the Bear Republic, same as you, Vince. And as far as like my little cartel channel, I do have sources in Mexico where I can bring you stuff, but also at the same time, even though my subscribership keeps growing slowly but surely, I don't want my channel to ever become something where I'm going to be profiteering off of the suffering of Mexican people who have been kind and generous and gracious to me. I'm going to do everything in my power to continue my book, continue writing some type of novel, and do my best to make sure I do right by the people that did right by me, which is in people on both sides of the border. You have all these politicians. The 10th Amendment Center was talking about it. There is not a single politician out there. I was watching Larkin Rose, whatever his name is.
We were all taught the mythology about how we elect representatives who then carry out the will of the people and serve us. But does that mythology actually match reality at all? Are you under the impression that politicians care what you want? Yeah, if you can throw a big enough pile of money at one of them in the form of campaign contributions. Might get a favor or two out of him, but you can't possibly think that politicians actually care what you want, or that they do what they do with your interests in mind. Someone who actually represented you would answer to you and would act on your behalf and do what you want done. Is that what politicians do? How about the ones you vote for? Even if your guy wins, you can't possibly actually believe that they work for you. You're not represented by those in power, including the ones you voted for. You are ruled by a ruling class, just as much as any subject of any king ever was. That is the literal reality. But how you view that, how you perceive that, and how you react to that, that's another question.
We talk about representational government in this country all the time, but is it really a representational government? This is something else I wanted to touch on earlier today. A representational government means that your politicians are more or less listening to you, but are they? They're listening to the billionaires that give them campaign donations and flood their pockets with money. Donald Trump having $200 or $300 million given to him by people that are aligned with AIPAC. There's not a single politician in this country that gives a good GD about anything that you or I or any other American wants that doesn't have $1 billion in their bank account. That's the way that it is. And it's protected by a bunch of people, a lot of whom have never deployed or never been in front of an armed and capable and trained and willing enemy that has the opportunity to unalive them, but think that they're John Wick anyways. I'll stick a little screenshot of what I'm talking about in there. And they protect this political class, while this political class builds armies of humanoid, dog, and drone robots to unalive you, surveil you, and unalive you without even having a human in the command chain. Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, Palantir, and others. And this is not even something that's science fiction. This is a fact. Putting flock cameras everywhere, all over the country, to surveil all of us. And even though people like to squawk about, well, you're in public, you have no expectation of privacy, that's true. However, you do have a Fourth Amendment right, and when those cameras are being wielded by a government that is using that to violate your Fourth Amendment rights, which means you're free from unreasonable search and seizure of your person, your papers, and your effects, that's not the same thing as John Doe out there pointing a camera while you're walking down the street. Not at all. And so these politicians that allow this all over the country, from the federal government all the way down to the city and state level, do all of this without even asking your say-so. And then when you show up to city hall and town hall meetings, they arrest you for speaking out of turn, won't allow you to speak, have closed sessions, and still do everything that benefits them financially, but it's not something that you want done. It's not a representational government. So there's a lot of things I'm talking about, guys. Talking about betraying your God. When there are children of any color or race being murdered, your role and duty as a man or as a woman or as a decent human being, the human dignity of being able to earn, not criminals, earn a living to put food in your mouth while your family lives thousands of miles away from you that are depending on your success for remittances back to the country, because they were born in an economic system that doesn't have the ability to sustain their household. And they are just as powerless, just as you are, in preventing the United States from going to war against Iran, which is a country that never attacked us. Or a government with people like Fauci pleading the fifth, telling you that you're not an essential human being. Jesus wasn't asking people what their nationality was. in order for them to eat. Jesus was crossing all kinds of borders. These governments that we have are not representational. That has changed too, through amendments in the Constitution. In fact, I defy most of you to even say that you've ever had a sit down or a face-to-face meeting with any politician that you want to sit there and defend. None of you. None of you have sat down and had an honest heart-to-heart, and then even better, had a politician sit there and say, you know what, Bob or Jane Doe, I hear you, and I'm going to implement that. In fact, to the contrary, when I called Gavin Newsom's office about not wanting the city shut down over COVID, I got laughed at by a Democrat that knew, and he told me flat out that the constituents mostly didn't agree with me and that they were going to do what they want. And Gavin Newsom then went on to have dinner with all of his friends at the French Laundry. Nancy Pelosi, who was my neighbor, not immediately neighbor, but lived about a mile down the road from me, went to go have her hair done in a hair salon. And London Breed sat there and was going out partying with her friends. These are your politicians, and they do not represent us. And so that's just kind of some of the stuff that I wanted to touch on today. You know, people either like my channel or they don't. I'm not going to get long-winded. I'm going to sit here and finish my little LaCroix, St. Croix, whatever, water, and have a movie night with my wife. Are you ready for movie night? More than ready? There you have it. My boss has put the ixnay on this video. Cheers, guys.